Jim Cramer joins me on the floor of the NYSE. Jim, we've got to talk about the Boeing being
I'm
grounded
sorry
in the
I missed
UK.
you yesterday because I've been focused on Boeing. This is very complicated. I have a long relationship with Boeing, and it was forged on the 757 and the problems there, and how Mr. McNerney said he will fix them, and it was just unwavering. Mr. Mohlberg is just fantastic. I think the difficulty they find themselves in is that they don't know that there's anything wrong, so they're sticking by it. If they felt there was even an iota of worry, they'll pull that plane. They will do what's responsible, and that's my rap. As country after country bans it, then it really doesn't matter.
Now.
Then it really doesn't matter. They have to pull it because Southwest is not an island. I mean, it is. I think it's customer driven. I think customers don't want to be in it because Ethiopian Air's got such a great safety record, and that's what really spooked people. What would I do personally if I were FAA? I would ground it because even though there's been, there are 300, more than 300 planes out there, and it's got a really great safety record, whatever. I think you just ground. I mean, there's no cost for the United States to ground it. It is. You check it out. If there's nothing wrong, it's right back in the sky. There's nothing pernicious about grounding. At the same time, I totally understand Boeing's going to do what's responsible, and they haven't pulled it. So that's. I trust Boeing is what I'm saying. Boeing's safety record is extraordinary. And so I think that we ought to at least factor that in.
And I want to talk to you also about the Disney-Fox deal, which is expected to close next week.
I think that, remember, we have the Disney analyst meeting. Everybody's waiting for that. But step by step, inch by inch, Disney's becoming a cleaner story. I also think that one of the things that's happened, this is the free safety period in football, and you see what ESPN Plus is doing. They are beginning to give you anything in depth, particularly anything that I'm not a gambler, I'm not allowed to gamble, but gambling's getting, is legalized in the country. ESPN Plus is vital if you gamble. And I'm only conscious of that because I see what I love fantasy, I love sports, and I see what's happening, which is they're gating the stuff that may make you a better bettor. So that's why ESPN Plus, I think, is going to be a huge success.
Disney's going to launch its streaming service at its April 11th meeting,
Yes.
and now we've got Apple. What do you think about streaming
Plenty of room
service?
for streaming. I mean, I always tell people, listen, before you think there's too many streamers, go take your clicker and go from channel 2 to channel 500. There are probably 100 channels that you just wish would disappear. Okay, so I can have 5 that I really want on a Roku. I mean, I think that they're overplaying their hand, the Bears. I think that there's plenty of room for everybody.
And what about Dick's Sporting Goods? That's real money stock of the day. They announced earnings today.
I'm not, they have the conference call. I had said that, Dick's the stock has been troubled, even though the company's not. And, they always, the 17% for their omni-channel, you need to see 25, 30. Obviously, Amazon has a lot of stuff they have. Under Armour, Nike direct-to-consumer is great. So I don't want them to become irrelevant, but obviously if you can't get those comp store sales up 3, 4, 5, that is ultimately makes you irrelevant.
You had a great real money column today about semiconductors, and
You
you
like
think
that?
I did like it.
Spent a huge amount of time on that.
Can you explain why you thought?
Well,
that you
because
should write it?
I think that what people have to recognize is even if it's not true, so to speak, when you have NVIDIA, which we know is big data and AI, Micron commodity, Skyworks telco, Broadcom acquisition, and they're all doing better. What that says is maybe it's a brighter future. And what people are looking at is that they're looking at the transports and they're saying maybe commerce is down 10 straight days. Maybe commerce is slowing. That piece presents the idea, well, maybe commerce is good by looking at the end markets for NXPI. Looking at the end markets. NXPI's caught a bid here. Skyworks was a company that was been basically hostage because they do, if you look at the order of who does the most business in China, even though it's not really true because they make in China and then they send out when they say, you make a chip in China and you send it to an Apple assembler, it counts as an export to China. So people don't understand how Skyworks has such a huge amount of business that goes in China, but Skyworks is moving up, Broadcom moving up. Today, not so much. But I think yesterday was a really significant day because what it says is, don't you bet against commerce. Is there a reverberation to American Express? Is there a reverberation to travel and entertainment, whatever? Is there a reverberation to Eaton? stock was upgraded today. What I'd say is that it's rosy. It creates a rosy scenario that allows you to be able to buy a lot more stocks than just the semis, including, of course, Apple. Now, the Apple upgrade, I continue to believe, had nothing. But Apple, it just had nothing. And I say own Apple, don't trade it. I don't like this move, though. The move is too aggressive.
Okay, and before we wrap, I've got an investing education question for you
good.
based on Boeing.
Yeah.
So, one thing that I noticed that a lot of people were mentioning in their articles was the fact that Boeing has 11% of the Dow. And that's interesting because UNH is the second closest and they have 6%.
It's just the Dow's not weighted correctly, right? I mean,
So my question to you then is, on a day like yesterday, on a day where a single stock is falling,
right.
should you make a trade based on that stock?
No, Catherine, I think that I remember at the beginning of my letter, my investment letter to my clients, I used to include the Dow and the S&P. And Karen Cramer once said, why do you keep including the Dow? And I said, because it's common parlance. She goes, yeah, but it's irrelevant. I think that it's just because it's common parlance that we even think about it. Remember, yesterday the market was down at one point 242 points, and almost all of it was Boeing. So let's asterisk that Dow, okay? We look at the S&P when we make judgments.
All right, Jim, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.